Charmless, chaotic, unbalanced. For many, this is what Brussels represents. Throughout its history, Brussels has been influenced by personal ambitions, huge demographic changes, and the need to project international prestige. All of this has created an eclectic mix of buildings and neighborhoods at the heart of Europe. One trend in particular has left behind the city with a scarred landscape, giving it a bit of a weird look. The trend I'm referring to is dubbed Brusselization. Brusselization refers to the uncontrolled and haphazard urban development seen in Brussels during the mid-20th century. This phenomenon involved the demolition of historic buildings, often replaced with modern high-rise structures without regard for architectural heritage or urban cohesion. This resulting in a fragmented and inconsistent cityscape. There are consistent examples of this throughout the city, with high-rise towers or modern buildings as backdrops to more traditional architecture. Why did this happen?
Brussels.
Since the late 1950s, Brussels has become one of the capitals of Europe. With it has come a huge increase in the supply and demand of offices. Between the 1950s and 70s, the square footage of office space in the city grew fivefold. Over 2 million square meters of space was added in just a few decades. This has had a profound effect on the city's residents and their future. But Brusselization and the massive drive to increase office space was not the first time that Brussels had experienced rapid change. That came long before. This is a map of the planned urban expansions of Brussels in the mid-1800s. At the center, you can see the medieval city with its organic street pattern, and on its outskirts, newly planned grid-style streets and notably wide boulevards. Between the mid-1800s and the 1950s, a lot of the city's housing stock looked like this. Blocks of 3 to 5 story buildings, lots of red bricks, and facades reflecting the architecture of the different eras. This kind of mid-1800s expansion is not unique to Brussels. Paris, Barcelona, Berlin, and Milan also saw urban plan schemes of the same style. The same year of the urban plan extension also saw the start of the construction of the Palace of Justice. This building took nearly 2 decades to complete, and it's potentially the largest building constructed in the entire 19th century. If you look at the plans of the project, you can see the scale of the undertaking. The building itself took down 2 city blocks, and the accompanying new streets knocked down plenty of other buildings. 2 people in particular took charge in transforming the city around this time. The first was Jules Anspach, the builder mayor. The first major project the mayor managed was the covering of the River Seine. The river that cut across the city had become a health hazard and was no longer economically viable. This project was an enormous undertaking. The second project was the creation of a series of grand boulevards to connect the city. This one specifically has recently become car-free, but others are more similar to how they were originally laid out. The second person who influenced the city immensely was King Leopold II, the Builder King. The story of Leopold II is abysmally dark. At the start of his reign in 1865, Belgium did not possess any overseas colonies. Obtaining one would be a mark of prestige and huge economic opportunity. That happened in 1885 with the establishment of the Congo Free State. Under Leopold's rule, the Congo Free State was not just a colony, it was his personal fiefdom. The extraction of wealth, particularly through the rubber trade, relied on forced labor and violence, resulting in the deaths of potentially millions of Congolese. This wealth, ruthlessly extracted from the Congo, fueled Leopold's grand projects back in Brussels. He funneled immense resources into reshaping the city, commissioning monumental buildings, parks, and museums intended to showcase Belgium's imperial power. One of the most prominent examples of this is the Cinquantenaire, built to celebrate Belgium's 50th anniversary. The city's crowning moment to showcase its modernization came in 1897 when Brussels hosted the World Expo. Held in the very same park, the Cinquantenaire, the event was a display of wealth and colonial prowess, with a special section dedicated to the Congo featuring human zoos, where Congolese people were put on display for visitors. It was a stark illustration of how Leopold's brutal exploitation abroad was tightly linked to the luxurious development of the capital. So, this history of radical changes to the fabric of the city and massive construction projects continue to the present day. And it's how Brusselization turned city blocks from looking like this to looking like this. This is the European Quarter, located just east of the city center. It was transformed in the mid-20th century as Brussels became one of the de facto capitals of the European Union. Massive office buildings for the European Commission, European Council, and European Parliament replaced residential blocks. Brusselization was fueled by this shift. Developers were eager to capitalize on the growing demand for office space. This led to a rapid, often unregulated transformation of entire city blocks. These developments prioritized modernity over traditional aesthetics, erasing the architectural harmony of a lot of the city. Another controversial example of this transformation is the Northern Quarter. Originally a working class area, it was gutted in the 60s and transformed into a sterile corporate district of high-rise office towers. Like in 1897, the 1958 World Expo was used as a pretext for this development. Highways were carved out, parking lots took over city blocks, and landmarks were constructed. Quick side note, the 1958 Expo also had a human zoo. Compared to other European capitals, I think Brussels really does seem more mismatched in terms of its architecture and neighborhoods. And it brings up the question, how should cities evolve? Or who gets to decide what gets preserved or erased? As Brussels continues to grow, these are questions that are still contentious. In the end, Brusselization isn't just Brussels' story. It's a universal one about the impact of history, ambition, and growth.